On our 5th wedding anniversary, Jack's gave me a grand gift. A cold A4 sheet of paper emblazoned with 2 stark words. Divorce agreement. Luna Lin, sign it. He sat across from me on an expensive Italian leather sofa, legs crossed elegantly. Dressed in a custom Armani suit, his Patek Philippe Nautilus watch glinted under the living room chandelier, casting icy, costly light. He was always like this. Even when delivering the cruelest words, he maintained an impeccable elite poise. My gaze drifted slowly from the agreement to his face. I'd loved this man for a decade, from the awkward college boy in a white shirt to the decisive rising star of the business world. I'd thought I'd look at him for the rest of my life. Why? My voice was dry, as if scraped raw by sandpaper. We no longer have anything in common, Jack said flatly, as if stating an irrelevant fact. I spend my days talking about AI and capital operations while you're worried about dinner menus and whether the floors are mopped. Luna Lin, you've long since fallen behind. My life is racing forward. But you're still stuck in the same place. Fallen behind. For 5 years, I'd turned down offers from top foreign universities and a 6-figure salary. I'd put away my code and my pride to tend to our home full-time. I'd thought this was our perfect division of labor. He conquered the world outside and I guarded our safe haven. But in his eyes I was just a nanny stuck in place. My heart felt as if it had been torn apart by an invisible hand, the pain stealing my breath. Is it because of Clara Xia? I forced out the name I'd been too afraid to speak. Clara Xia, Jax's college classmate, the pure white moonlight he'd never forgotten. She'd divorced and returned to China a month ago, and then they'd run into each other. Jax's body tensed almost imperceptibly before he regained his composure. This has nothing to do with Clara. It's between us, he said calmly. Why? As I looked at the man I'd shared a bed with for 5 years, I saw him for the first time, utterly strange. Just then the doorbell rang. Jack stood to answer it. There on the doorstep was Clara Xia. She wore a white dress, her long hair cascading over her shoulders. Her face held a fragile, innocent expression, her eyes red like a frightened fawn. Jax, she whispered. When her gaze met mine, she quickly pulled back as if burned. I'm sorry, did I come at a bad time? Jax immediately stepped forward, pulling her into his arms with concern. Silly girl, you could never come at a bad time. The one who should leave isn't you. His eyes slid over me as if I were a cumbersome piece of old furniture that needed clearing away. In that moment, all my love, all my nostalgia, all my unwillingness died. Died without a trace. I've read the agreement, I said, standing up and walking to the coffee table. I picked up the Mont Blanc pen he used to sign 100 million yuan contracts, my voice steady. Jax and Clara both turned to me. Jax's eyes held the cold indifference I'd expected. Clara's, however, hid a faint, triumphant smirk. I don't want the house, the cars, the savings, or the company shares, nothing, I said. I flipped to the last page and signed my name neatly in the wife section. Luna Lin. I have only one request, I said, pushing the signed agreement toward him. Speak. I'll move out my things tonight, I told him, every word deliberate. From now on we have nothing to do with each other. Jack seemed surprised by my quick agreement. He paused, then a sneer tugged at his lips. Fine. He probably thought I'd finally come to my senses, a woman who couldn't survive without him, choosing the dignified way out. I didn't look at them again. I turned and walked into the bedroom. As I packed, I could faintly hear Clara's soft sobs and Jax's deep consolations from the living room. Jax, am I a terrible person? Well, Sister Luna. Hate me. You did nothing wrong. The fault is mine. I should have met you sooner so you wouldn't have suffered so much. I zipped up the suitcase, my face expressionless. I had so few things, just one suitcase. For 5 years I'd given everything to this family. In the end, this was all I could take with me. I dragged the suitcase out of the home I'd decorated with my own hands, filled with memories of us. Passing through the living room, I saw Clara nestled in Jax's arms, like a victorious peacock. Jax didn't even bother to spare me a glance. I pulled open the front door and stepped outside. The door slammed shut behind me, closing the book on my 10-year ridiculous love story. In the elevator, the polished mirror reflected my pale, ashen face. As I looked at my reflection, I suddenly smiled. Jax, you always called me a housewife who only knew how to cook and clean. Soon you'll find out what it was you threw away with your own hands. Soon you'll regret it. I promise. I dragged my suitcase, not heading to any friend's place or the old house my parents left me. With the little cash I had left, I rented a tiny studio in the city's oldest, most nondescript apartment building. It was barely over 10 square meters, peeling wallpaper, a faint smell of damp mold lingering in the air. Yet for the first time in years I felt safe. I dumped the suitcase in the corner, then reached into its deepest recess, pulling out a hidden compartment. Inside was something wrapped tightly in a black anti-static bag. Unfolding it, I found a plain silver-gray laptop, no logos on the lid. But if you looked closely, etched in the bottom right corner of the metal casing was a minuscule, glowing cobalt blue butterfly made entirely of zeros and ones. I traced the butterfly gently with my fingertip. 5 years. My oldest friend, we were finally reunited. I opened the laptop. No welcome screen, no operating system. Just a pitch-black display and a single blinking green cursor. I placed my fingers on the familiar cold keyboard. Closing my eyes, I took a deep breath. When I opened them again, Luna Lin, the gentle, forbearing, almost subservient housewife, was gone. In her place stood someone whose name was classified as top secret by cybersecurity agencies worldwide. Phantom. I was once one of the world's elite hackers. Not for money, not for fame, I lived for the thrill of moving freely, unstoppable, through the invisible binary world of data. I'd breached the Pentagon's firewalls alone, leaving nothing but a hello world in their internal systems. Anonymously, I'd helped Interpol track the servers of the globe's largest dark web marketplace, taking down an entire criminal syndicate. Phantom, that's what they called me. A ghost, appearing and disappearing without a trace. Except for that blue butterfly of zeros and ones. Then I met Jax Chin. Back then he was a promising young entrepreneur fresh off his first round of funding, brimming with ambition. I fell for the light in him, the dazzling passion he had for the future. For him, I was willing to step down from the clouds, sheath my claws, trade code for cooking pots, and become the ordinary woman behind his success. I naively thought this was love. I believed my sacrifice would earn a lifetime by his side. Now I know how wrong I was. Catastrophically wrong. When an eagle voluntarily breaks its wings for love, stepping into a cage to become a canary, it loses all value in the hunter's eyes. Left only with the fate of being discarded. I plugged a data cable into the laptop, connecting the other end to a USB-sized device that was actually a military-grade 4G receiver. I typed a line of code. Connect to equals Skynet server via equals backdoor 0x01, he equals forget-me-not this backdoor. I'd hidden it 5 years earlier, when I built the initial cybersecurity framework for Jax's company, Skynet Technologies. A hacker's playful habit, nothing more. I never imagined I'd actually use it someday. Forget-me-nots, the first flowers Jax gave me when we got together. Also my very first online alias back in my hacking days. He'd probably long forgotten. It didn't matter. Soon I'd make him remember. Make him never ever forget. On the screen, a line of green text appeared slowly. Successful. Welcome. Back fandom. I stared at the words, a cold smile curving my lips. Jax Chin. Your empire, your pride, your impenetrable data fortress. I wrote its very first line of code. So it's only fitting that I'll be the one to write its last. The overture to revenge had officially begun. 3. I didn't strike immediately. The greatest hunters are endlessly patient before delivering the killing blow. I needed to watch to see how triumphant my prey was without his troublesome wife. Lurking in Skynet servers like a true ghost, I had a god's eye view. I accessed every email, every meeting transcript, every project's real progress. I watched as Jax wasted no time installing Clara Xia as his personal assistant, a role with no real responsibilities, yet a salary matching that of a vice president. I witnessed their sickening displays of intimacy in the office. I saw how Clara, hiding behind her innocent facade, demanded designer bags, expensive jewelry, even a luxury penthouse in the city center. And Jax gave her everything. As if making up for 5 years of neglect. Doubled. No jealousy, no anger stirred in me. Only a cold, icy calm. So he could be romantic. He wasn't stingy, he just chose not to be with me. Good. The sweeter you are now, the more agonizing your fall will be. I screenshot every intimate chat, every transfer receipt, saved them, encrypted them. These would be Clara's breakup gift. While observing, I searched for Jax's fatal flaw. Skynet had become an industry unicorn in just 5 years, all thanks to SkyVault, a cutting-edge AI operating system. It was Jax's lifeline, the source of all his arrogance. And next Monday he was set to unveil SkyVault 2.0 to the world. The biggest launch in Skynet's history. It was said that if successful, the company's market value would triple overnight. And through analyzing his team's email exchanges, I'd uncovered a fatal secret. The core intelligent recommendation patent of SkyDome 2.0 wasn't an original creation of Jax Chen's team. Instead, he'd acquired it through unscrupulous means 2 years earlier from a small, bankrupt company. The founder of that company, driven to despair by Jax's tactics, had chosen to jump to his death. Jax had covered up the entire incident with money and power, swept it under the rug without a trace. But all the original contracts and dirty transaction records still lay quietly on Skylar Tech's encrypted legal department server. This was the first breakthrough I'd chosen for him. Monday, 3 days before Skylar Tech's press conference. I timed it perfectly. While Jax Chen and all senior executives were conducting the final rehearsal for the launch, I struck. My goal wasn't to destroy their data or cripple their network. That was too crude, not in line with Phantom's artistic style. What I wanted to do was steal. I intended to silently extract all the core source code of SkyDome 2.0, the asset they valued more than life itself, from their supposedly impenetrable servers on the eve of their press conference. I wanted to turn their grand launch into a worldwide joke. I typed the attack command. Code. Target equals SkyDome 2.0. Mode equals silent. A massive stream of data began flowing through the tiny backdoor I'd planted, like an invisible river, into my matrix of anonymous servers scattered across the globe. The entire process lasted an hour, no alarms triggered. No traces left behind. When the final line of code finished transferring, I pressed delete. In that instant, all source code and backup files of SkyDome 2.0 on Skylar Tech's core servers vanished into the void of zeros and ones. Having completed my task, I made myself a cup of hot tea, then sat back calmly waiting for the show to begin. I knew that tomorrow morning when Jax Chen and his team walked into the office, they'd be facing a mad hell. For Tuesday, 6 days before the launch of Oracle. No, SkyDome 2.0 now. Skylar Tech, a high-octane commercial empire filled with elite professionals on any normal day, descended into deadly panic at 9 a.m. sharp. The source code. It's gone. All the source code and backups for SkyDome 2.0, they've all vanished into thin air. The chief architect of the R&D department was the first to discover the disaster. When he tried to run the final verification on the finished product as usual, he found the core code repository holding the company's entire lifeline had become an empty folder. The news exploded like a nuclear bomb, throwing the entire R&D center into chaos. Jax Chen was enjoying hand-brewed coffee with Clara Xia in his CEO office, which overlooked the entire financial district, when he received the call. Through the camera on his office computer, I watched his expression shift clearly, from initial dismissiveness to disbelief to towering rage. What did you say? Gone. Hundreds of engineers, terabytes of code, you're telling me it's just gone? Are you fucking joking with me? He swept everything off his desk, an expensive coffee machine, delicate bone china cups, smashing them to the floor. Clara Xia turned pale with fright, cowering in the corner, trembling. Jax ignored her. He rushed into the R&D center like an enraged lion. For the next several hours, Skylar Tech descended into apocalyptic chaos. All technical staff were mobilized, frantically searching every corner of the servers for the missing code. But they found nothing. It was as if the code had never existed. No signs of intrusion. Firewalls are intact. All security logs show normal activity. The company's chief security officer, a highly paid expert recruited from Silicon Valley, reported to Jax, dripping with sweat. Boss, this is impossible. It's like we're haunted. Haunted? Sitting in my shabby rental apartment watching the live feed from their conference room monitors on my laptop, I couldn't help but chuckle softly. As haunted by the ghost of Phantom come to claim your souls. Find it for me. Tear apart every server. Grind the hard drives to dust if you have to, just get the data back. Jax's eyes were bloodshot as he paced like a caged beast. He spent a fortune hiring the world's top cybersecurity firms. A team of suited experts moved into Skylar Tech, launching their so-called data recovery and intrusion tracing efforts. They worked frantically for 2 full days. Finally, on Thursday afternoon they presented their findings to Jax. The report's conclusion was a single sentence. Adversary is a god. We are powerless. The only clue they'd uncovered was a faint blue flower pattern made of code, one I'd deliberately left hidden in the deepest layers of the server. It was a mocking smile from the abyss, blooming silently amid Skylar Tech's ruins. Impossible to delete, overwrite, or trace. It stood there as if declaring to the world, I was here. I took what I wanted. And there's nothing you can do about it. 5. Phantom. When Jax heard the code name from the ashen-faced security experts, his body jolted violently. He knew that name. It had appeared in the highest-level cybersecurity briefings, mandatory reading for every business leader. Phantom was a legend, a top-tier hacker who moved through the global cyber world like a ghost, unimpeded. No one knew their true identity, male or female, nationality unknown. They acted only for interest and justice. They'd once leaked the complete dirty records of an arrogant arms dealer to the public. And shut down a dark web live-streaming platform profiting from animal abuse, permanently. They were classified as a top threat by security agencies worldwide, yet revered as a god by countless programmers and hackers. But Phantom had vanished without a trace for 5 full years. Why? Why had they suddenly reappeared? And why would they target a small company like Skynet Technologies? Jax couldn't fathom it. All he knew was that he was ruined. Without Skyvault 2.0, next Monday's launch event would be a humiliating farce. The company's stock would plummet. Investors' trust would shatter into dust. The business empire he'd slaved 5 years to build would crumble in an instant. No, never. Bloodshot eyes blazing, Jax roared like a gambler who'd lost it all. The launch goes on as planned. As planned. His PR director stared at him in disbelief. Boss, what do we even launch? An empty folder. Use version 1.0. Repackage the interface and call it 2.0. Just get through the event, stabilize the stock price, then we'll pay Phantom whatever it takes to get the source code back. Jax made a desperate decision. He was going to deceive the world. Get it back. The cybersecurity expert scoffed. Boss, you don't understand Phantom. They never take money. They strike only to judge. Judge. Jax sneered. Who the hell do they think they are to judge me? I'll find out who this coward hiding behind a keyboard really is. Find them. Spare no expense. I want Phantom's identity, pull them out of the depths of hell. Over the next 2 days, Jax deployed every connection and resource at his disposal, frantically hunting for any trace of Phantom. But he found nothing. True to their name, Phantom was a ghost, untraceable, elusive. Word of the stolen core data couldn't stay hidden forever. Morale plummeted and rumors ran rampant. Several key tech leads had already started secretly contacting headhunters, looking for exits. Clarissa was terrified. Gone was the gentle white moonlight facade. She'd become a spoiled princess on the brink of losing everything, bickering with Jax non-stop. Jax, what's happening with the company? Are the rumors true? Our stocks dropped so much. Do I need to return that Hermes I bought last month? Can you just leave me alone? Jax snapped at her for the first time ever. As he looked at this woman whose only concerns were bags and stocks, a strange, unwelcome feeling of annoyance stirred in him. Suddenly he thought of Luna Lin. Of the woman who'd left a light on and a bowl of hot soup waiting for him, no matter how late he came home. Of the woman who'd silently handed over her entire savings during his darkest startup days, saying, "It's okay, I'll support you." If she were here now, what would she do? Cry? Throw a fit? Or just worry about her bags like Clara? No, Jax was certain. She'd simply make him a cup of tea, then say softly, "Don't be afraid. If the sky falls, I'll stand with you." A ridiculous, even laughable thought erupted in his mind. What if he could get Luna back? He crushed it immediately. Impossible. He'd pushed her away with his own hands. He had no right to think of her now. Exhausted, he leaned back in his chair and stared out at the familiar night sky. His gaze drifted to the office desk, to a blue and white porcelain vase he used as a pen holder. Stuck among the pens was a single dried flower, unrecognizable. Forget-me-not. Luna had given it to him years ago. She'd said it was her favorite flower. Forget-me-not. Forget-me-not. Jax's pupils contracted sharply. Like struck by lightning, he jumped out of his chair. He remembered. The unerasable divine mark the security experts had talked about, the blue flower made of code. It was a forget-me-not. Identical to this one. 6A wild speculation, one that would upend Jax's entire worldview, spread like wildfire, consuming all his reason. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. He raced to his desk, his hands trembling so violently he fumbled several times before opening his laptop. He pulled up the screenshot the security team had sent, of the mark hidden deep in the server's core. On the screen, the cobalt blue forget-me-not, woven from countless zeros and ones, bloomed silently, beautiful, mysterious, and mocking. He then sprinted to the bookshelf, rummaging through the bottom shelf until he found a dusty box of college mementos, almost forgotten. Inside were yellowed textbooks, a faded jersey, and a stack of love letters from Luna, letters he'd once dismissed as trivial. Trembling, he opened one. At the end there was no signature. Only a tiny hand-drawn forget-me-not, exactly like the one on the screen. Next to it, in delicate handwriting, were the words, "Your little shadow, Luna Lin." Jax's mind exploded. All the strength drained from his body and he collapsed to the floor. The letters slipped from his hands, scattering everywhere. Phantom. Luna Lin. Housewife. Elite hacker. These two utterly contradictory identities, impossible to reconcile, collided at this moment in the most absurd, cruel way. Memories flooded back, details he'd deliberately ignored. He remembered how, in college, Luna had used just a laptop to snag him a spot in the university's most competitive elective. Back then he'd thought it was just luck. He remembered how, in the company's early days when they were bombarded by unknown cyber attacks, Luna had casually said she knew a little something, and built an impenetrable firewall in a single afternoon. That very firewall's core architecture was still the backbone of Skynet's security system today. He remembered mocking her more than once, saying she was out of touch with the world, a boring relic stuck at home. And she just smiled, never arguing back. He'd thought that was resignation, acceptance of her fate. Now he realized, it had been contempt. Contempt for him, this arrogant fool. She hadn't been ignorant. She'd been indifferent. She hadn't been falling behind. His entire world, perhaps it had been nothing more than a flawed child's toy in her eyes. And he, this self-proclaimed king, had chased away the most powerful guardian of his kingdom with his own hands. Now that guardian had returned as phantom, come to collect every debt he owed. Heh. Heh heh. Heh heh heh. Leaning against the cold bookshelf, Jax let out a laugh, harsh, bitter, worse than crying. He laughed at his own stupidity, his arrogance, his blindness. Clara heard the noise and pushed the door open. Seeing him in such a shattered state, she jumped in shock. "Jax, what's wrong? Don't scare me." He stepped forward, trying to help him. Jax Chinmungda looked up, his bloodshot, crimson eyes fixing on her with a gaze that was cold, unfamiliar, filled with loathing and murder. Clara Xia felt a chill run down her spine, stepping back instinctively. "Get out." The word grated through Jax's teeth. He finally understood what he'd abandoned for this hypocritical, greedy woman. He hadn't just left a wife behind. He'd surrendered his entire empire. 7 The moment he confirmed Phantom was Luna Lin, Jax Chin's world crumbled completely. Anger, fear, remorse, shame, waves of emotion like venomous snakes gnawed frantically at his heart. But he had no time to drown in despair. He knew he had to find her immediately. Not for revenge, not for accusations, but to beg for mercy. Jax Chin, the prodigy who'd never bowed to anyone, now planned to drop to his knees before the woman he'd cast out. He pulled every string to track Luna Lin down. Yet she'd vanished completely, living up to her code name. She hadn't returned to her family or contacted any friends. None of her bank cards showed activity. Like a drop of water merging into the ocean, no trace left. Jax Chin went mad. He wandered the city like a headless chicken, searching frantically. He visited every restaurant they'd ever dined at, every park they'd strolled through. He even sat outside the Civil Affairs Bureau where they'd married for an entire afternoon. But Luna Lin was nowhere to be found. Days passed and the Monday launch drew near. The company's situation grew dire. Key technical staff began submitting their resignations one after another. Their most important investors sent stern inquiry letters. Skylar Tech, the commercial empire he'd prided himself on, teetered on the brink of collapse. And Clara Xiao finally revealed her true colors. Convinced the company was beyond saving, she began embezzling assets, secretly selling off the properties and jewelry Jax had given her for cash. On Saturday night, Jax stumbled home exhausted to their cold house, only to find Clara's belongings gone. A flimsy note lay on the table. "I'm sorry, but I prefer the invincible you from before. Our fate ends here." Jax stared at the note, feeling no anger, only numb, hollow silence. He sat in the empty room like a zombie all night long, until early morning when his phone pinged. It was an anonymous encrypted email. No message, just an address. A rundown apartment building in Geylang. Jax knew it was her. Luna Lin. Phantom. After days of silence, she'd sent him a signal. This was his last chance. He scrambled out the door, speeding toward the address in a frenzy, too desperate to change out of his crumpled, two-day-old suit. Dignity no longer mattered. He just needed to see her. To kneel before her and beg forgiveness for the code for his failing empire to survive. The apartment building looked at least 40 years old, its walls peeling, the stairwell reeking of damp mold and mixed food odors. Standing below, Jax stared at the structure, so alien to his usual five-star hotels and luxury offices, and felt a daze come over him. He couldn't fathom Luna Lin, the woman who'd kept their homes spotless and warm, now living in such a place. And he was the one who'd done this to her. Overwhelming guilt and remorse tightened around his throat, stealing his breath. He climbed the creaking stairs, his steps heavy. The address in the email was Unit 404. He stood before the shabby wooden door, so flimsy it looked like it could be kicked in, yet hesitated to knock. What could he say? What could he possibly say? As he wavered, the door creaked open from the inside. Luna Lin stood there, dressed in a simple white t-shirt and faded jeans, her hair tied casually behind her head, no makeup on her face. But her eyes were nothing like the gentle, affectionate ones Jax remembered. They were eyes he'd never seen, calm, cold, sharp. Like a blade forged in ice or an unfathomably deep pool. She looked at him quietly as if he were a complete stranger. "You're here," she said, her voice flat, no emotion discernible. "Luna Lin." Jax stared at her, his throat dry. Thousands of words choked in his chest, but not one escaped. He wanted to apologize, to repent, to beg for forgiveness. But facing her icy gaze, he realized all words were futile, hollow, and meaningless. But under Luna Lin's unblinking stare, Jack's chin, once arrogant to the core, fell to his knees without warning. He knelt on the dusty, cold concrete floor. "I was wrong." His voice was hoarse, broken, filled with unending remorse. "Luna Lin, I was wrong. Come back, please. Give me the code back. I'll give you anything, the company, the money, everything. Just name it. Please. Let me go." Like a drowning man clutching his last lifeline, he begged humbly. Luna Lin looked down at the man she'd once loved fiercely. Her face remained expressionless. She simply shook her head slowly. "Jack's chin." Her voice sounded as if from a distant horizon, ethereal yet final. "It's too late." Too late. 3 words, sharp as ice shards, pierced Jack's chin's heart. Kneeling on the floor, he stared up at Luna Lin in disbelief, her face calm to the point of cruelty. "Why?" He roared like a cornered beast. "What do you want? You've destroyed my company, everything I have. Isn't that enough? Do you really have to drive me to my death to be satisfied?" "Drive you to your death?" A faint, mocking smile finally tugged at Luna's lips. "Jack's chin, you overestimate yourself. Did you think all this was for you?" She knelt down, meeting his gaze levelly. Her eyes reflected his disheveled, desperate form. "I destroyed your company not because I hate you, though I do. But I'm here to take back something. Something stolen from me and my family through dirty tricks." Her words stunned Jax rigid. "What? What are you talking about?" Luna didn't answer. She stood, walked back into the room and returned with a silver-gray laptop he'd never seen before. Setting it down in front of him, she opened the screen. Displayed was a document he knew all too well, the original patent application for SkyVault 1.0's Intelligent Recommendation Module. But the name on the application wasn't his, nor Skynet Technologies. It was the name of a small company he'd nearly forgotten, Morningstar Studios. And the name of its founder, the man he'd driven to despair, who'd finally jumped from a rooftop. Lin Yaogua. How did you? Jax's pupils contracted violently as if he'd seen a ghost. Surprised. Luna's voice was cold, devoid of any warmth. I never told you. Lin Yaogua was my father. And Morningstar Studios, the company you destroyed with a cheap acquisition contract and a staged accident, was my father's lifelong dream. Jax's mind went completely blank. Finally he understood. He understood why Luna had married him. Why Phantom had targeted him. This wasn't revenge for a broken heart. It was a 5-year-long vengeance, built on deception, disguise, and a plan to destroy him from the start. He'd thought he'd married a docile little rabbit. But he'd actually invited a venomous, masterfully disguised serpent into his bed. So. Jax's voice trembled uncontrollably. These 5 years. Everything. Was a lie. No. Luna shook her head. My love for you was real. And because it was real. When I found out you'd destroyed everything I had, ruined my father's life's work, and even indirectly killed him. Her gaze turned infinitely dark. My hatred for you is real too. Jax stumbled out of the rundown apartment building. He didn't know how he'd gotten there or where he was going. Luna's final words had cut through his already shattered heart like a poisoned blade, tearing it to shreds. Love was real. Hatred was real. He'd rather it had all been a lie. He'd rather Luna had approached him, married him solely for revenge. At least then he could have hated her. But now he didn't even have the right to hate. He'd destroyed her father's legacy, indirectly driven him to his death. Then he'd crushed her dreams of love and marriage with his own hands. He'd turned a woman who once loved him deeply into a vengeful goddess come to claim his life. He was the unforgivable sinner. Monday arrived and Skynet's SkyVault 2.0 launch event went ahead as scheduled. But it wasn't a product launch anymore. It was a press conference. A confession. Hosted by Jax himself. Standing on stage he was a shadow of his former self, pale, sunken-eyed, dressed in a black suit, aged a decade in just days. In front of every media outlet present, he admitted that SkyVault's core patent was mired in massive controversy. He announced that Skynet would indefinitely postpone SkyVault 2.0's release and form an independent investigation team to revisit the Morningstar Studios acquisition. He bowed deeply, apologizing to all investors and consumers. The conference did nothing to save Skynet's fortunes, it only confirmed every rumor swirling around the company. The next day, Skynet's stock plummeted to its daily limit. The company's cash flow collapsed completely. The board held an emergency meeting and voted to remove Jax as CEO. He was cast out of the empire he'd built with his own hands. As for Clara Xia, upon learning Jax had lost all his power, she immediately fled with every cent she could steal, buying a one-way ticket abroad and disappearing without a trace. In a single week Jax lost everything. His company, his status, his wealth, his ridiculous white moonlight love. He became the biggest joke in the business world. And the mastermind behind it all, Luna Lin or Phantom, vanished once more as if she'd just finished a trivial errand. No one knew who she was. No one knew where she'd gone. True to her code name, she was a ghost, living only in the digital world. 11. I paid no mind to the chaos outside. Jax's downfall had been inevitable. An empire built on sand would crumble at the first gust of wind. I was just the wind. Over the next month I did one thing. I anonymously sent all the original complete data on the SkyVault system, extracted from Skynet servers, to its rightful heir. Zhou Ziqian, the son of Uncle Zhou, my father's former partner and my childhood best friend. After Morningstar Studios collapsed, he and his father had been burdened with massive debts, living a life of extreme hardship. But they'd never given up on their pursuit of technology. I told him this was what his father had left behind. I hoped he could make Morningstar shine again, this time in a clean, honest sky. With that done, I finally felt like I'd closed the book on my father's unjust past. I began to plan my future. I didn't want to be Phantom anymore. Living in the dark, surrounded by code, enemies everywhere, it was exhausting. I wanted to be an ordinary person. Luna Lin, breathing freely in the sunlight. With the last of my savings, I rented a small space near the university district. I planned to open a cafe. I even had a name for it. Forget-me-not. The day the cafe opened, the sun was shining brightly. I was the only one there bustling around. No ribbon cutting, no guests. Only an unexpected visitor. It was Jax Chin. He wore a faded, washed-out old t-shirt, his face unshaven. Gone was the sharp arrogance from his eyes. Only a dull, lifeless gloom remained. He'd lost a lot of weight, his skin tanned and weathered. He looked like a migrant worker who'd spent 3 months hauling bricks at a construction site. He didn't come closer, just stood across the street, watching me from a distance, watching me clumsily wipe the tables and arrange vases. His gaze was complex. Remorse, pain, unwillingness. But mostly, it held an incomprehensible, almost desperate longing. He stood there for an entire afternoon. Until the sun set. I stepped outside to close up shop. Only then did he, like a coward summoning all his courage, slowly walk toward me. 12 Luna Lin. He stood before me, his voice rasping as if sanded by a grindstone. I looked at him, saying nothing, just quietly pulling down the cafe's roller shutter inch by inch. Can I talk to you for a minute? He asked, his tone bordering on begging. Is there anything left for us to say? I replied, my voice as calm as if discussing the weather. Yes, he said, his eyes reddening gradually. I'm sorry. You should have said that to my father. Unfortunately, he can't hear it anymore. My words cut through his heart like a knife, again. His body swayed, nearly collapsing. I know I'm unforgivable. He closed his eyes in agony. I don't ask for your forgiveness. I just wanted to see you one more time. See me. I laughed, but the smile didn't reach my eyes. See the woman you destroyed everything for, who then destroyed everything of yours? Jax Chin, do you find this entertaining? No. He shook his head frantically. I just regret it. I regret not really seeing you. Back then. Seeing the woman who cooked for me, washed my clothes, kept our home in perfect order. Seeing the woman who stayed up all night by my bed when I was sick. Seeing the woman who'd greet me with a smile the moment I walked through the door. His voice trailed off, choked by sobs. A 30-year-old man who'd once dominated the business world now stood before me, crying uncontrollably like a guilty child. A month ago his tears might have brought me satisfaction. But now all I felt was numb sorrow. We'd finally reached this point, no turning back. Jax Chin, I said softly, looking at him, it's all over. Leave. Don't come looking for me again. Let's go our separate ways in peace. With that I turned away, pulling down the last section of the shutter. Bang. The sound sealed him out, along with his confessions, his tears, and his belated, worthless devotion, completely shut off from my world. I leaned against the cold door, sliding down slowly. 2 lines of tears finally fell, uncontrollable. Goodbye, Jax Chin. Goodbye to my 10 years of love and hate. 13. I thought that would be the end of my story with Jax Chin. But fate's script is always more dramatic than any novel. A month later my cafe was running smoothly. Business was neither booming nor sluggish, enough to pay the rent and support myself. And Zhou Ziqian's new Star Studio, with my secret technical support, had successfully launched their own Sky Dome system. Unlike Skylar Tech's grand high-profile release, their product had caused a stir in the industry with its solid technology and clean origins. Everything seemed to be moving in a positive direction. Until that day when a man in a sharp suit walked into my cafe. He was Jax Chin's personal lawyer. He handed me a document. Ms. Lin, he said, his tone formally polite, this is what Mr. Chin left for you. I opened it. Inside was a complete share transfer agreement for Skylar Tech. Before being ousted by the board, Jax Chin had used his last remaining power to transfer all his personal shares, approximately 35% of the company's total equity, to me free of charge. At the end of the agreement he'd written a line in his own handwriting. This is what I owe you. Do with it as you wish. Jack's chin. I held the document that could make anyone a billionaire overnight, my hands trembling. What? What does he want? The lawyer looked at me with a complex expression. Mr. Chin said Skylar Tech was your father's life's work and something he stole from him. Now he's just returning it to its rightful owner. He also said. The lawyer paused. He said he has nothing left. The only thing he can give back to you is this sinful empty shell. Ms. Lin, Mr. Chin. He might not make it. My heart sank sharply. Where is he? The lawyer shook his head. After signing this document, Mr. Chin disappeared. No one can contact him. I searched for him frantically for 2 full days. I hacked into the city's traffic surveillance systems, checked all immigration records. But there was nothing. He'd vanished into thin air. On the 3rd day, I received a call from the hospital. It was Dr. Lin, not the psychiatrist I'd known before, but the director of the ICU at the Central Hospital. Is this Ms. Luna Lin? The voice on the other end was heavy. This is Central Hospital. Your ex-husband, Mr. Jack's Chin. He suffered multiple organ failure due to acute alcohol poisoning. He's in emergency resuscitation. The situation is extremely critical. He's been calling your name in his coma. Could you come see him one last time? 14. When I arrived at the hospital, Jack's Chin had already been wheeled into the operating room. Outside, the long corridor was empty. No family, no friends. The once mighty commercial empire had collapsed, and all his followers had abandoned him. Only I, his ex-wife, the one he'd hurt the deepest, who hated him the most, stood there keeping watch. How ironic. The surgery lasted 8 hours. I don't know how I endured it. All I knew was that when the operating room lights finally went out, my legs were numb with loss of sensation. The doctor walked out, removing his mask, and shook his head tiredly at me. I'm sorry. We did everything we could. His will to live was too weak. Before he passed, he woke up once. He asked me to give you this. The doctor handed me a small sealed bag. Inside was a ring, our wedding ring. The one I'd taken off and left on the bedside table when I left that house. Engraved on the inner band were tiny words. Phantom, my love. So he'd remembered everything. So he'd known all along. Tears gushed forth unbidden. I knelt on the ground, clutching the cold ring, sobbing like a lost child. Did I hate him? Yes. Did I love him? Once I did. Jack's Chin's funeral was simple. But the love and hate between us had long been worn away by the tides of fate, twisted beyond recognition, leaving nothing but endless desolation. Few people came, only me and a handful of old employees who'd once benefited from his kindness. His father, Gu Jingwa, didn't attend. I heard that on the day he learned of his son's death, his hair turned white overnight. He'd locked himself away completely in that empty old mansion. I didn't use a photo on his tombstone. Instead, I had a single line engraved. Man who loved and lost. It drizzled on the day of the burial. I stood before his grave under a black umbrella for a long time. Memories of him flooded back, the first time he smiled at me in the university library wearing a white shirt, how he'd carried me around our tiny rental apartment when we first married, the cold, emotionless look in his eyes the day we divorced. All the love, all the hate, at that moment they fell into the soil with the cold rain, vanishing without a trace. After Jack's Chin's death, I finally accepted the Skylar Tech shares. But I didn't become the company's new owner. In my identity as Phantom, I made one final decision: to merge Skylar Tech with Zhou Ziqian's new Star Studio. I transferred all my shares to Zhou Ziqian free of charge. The merged company would bear neither Skylar nor New Star in its name. Having done this, I deleted the Phantom ID and formatted the laptop that had accompanied me through countless battles. From that day on, there would be no more top hacker Phantom in the world, only Luna Lin Cafe owner. 1 year later. Forget-me-not cafe. Warm afternoon sunlight spilled over me. The cafe wasn't crowded. I sat behind the bar, leisurely reading a book about coffee latte art. The wind chime tinkled. I looked up to see Zhou Ziqian walking in. He wore a well-fitted suit, much more mature and steady than a year ago. Sister Luna, he said with a smile, sitting across from me. What brings you to my little cafe today? I poured him a cup of hand-brewed coffee. Forget-me-not Tech officially rang the opening bell on Nasdaq today, he said, his tone calm yet proud. Opening price, $35. Market cap exceeds Skylar Tech's peak. Congratulations, I said, sincerely happy for him. We should be celebrating, he replied, his eyes earnest. Sister Luna, I know I wouldn't be here without you. I've kept half the company's shares for you whenever you want them. No need, I interrupted with a smile. Ziqian, that's all in the past. I'm doing well now. And I was. No more billions, no luxury cars or designer clothes, but my heart was peaceful and free as never before. Zhou Ziqian looked at me, nodded, and didn't insist. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and pushed it toward me. I'm getting married next month, he said, smiling shyly. This is a gift my fiancé and I picked out for you. We hope you'll come to our wedding. I opened the box to find a pair of delicate forget-me-not earrings. The bride is. You know her, Zhou Ziqian said, his face lighting up with happiness. Lin Wei from Arc Data. We met at a tech conference. Lin Wei. I paused, then smiled too. How nice. Truly nice. All the kind, hard-working, persistent people had finally found their own happiness. Yes, I said, nodding firmly. I'll definitely be there. Outside the window, the sun shone brightly and the breeze was gentle. The aroma of coffee filled the small cafe. I knew my life would never have a fairy tale ending. The pain, the scars, would always be etched into my bones. But so what? At least I was alive. Able to brew a cup of coffee for a friend on such a warm afternoon. Able to look forward to attending a wedding filled with blessings. Able to say to this world that once broke me, yet gave me a new life, hey look, I'm still here.